What's your favorite joke in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum? Type it out in the comments, scribble it down, commit it to memory. Whatever you do, try to come up with something without my influence so we can compare notes. Maybe you love Looker, or that Team Galactic goon you have to chase through Pastoria City, all caps screaming, "Galactic Bomb is fun!" Many of you may select the Everstone Haunter trade in Snowpoint City. Hopefully, you've made your selection. My favorite joke in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum is Piloswine's evolution. Gen 4 adds 28 new evolutions to old Pokemon, some as new evolutionary splits like Frostlass, some baby Pokemon like Mantike, and some new end stages like Mamoswine. To get Mamoswine, you must level up Piloswine while it knows the move Ancient Power. To teach Piloswine Ancient Power, you must teach it through the Move Guru, which requires a heart scale that you can pick up by this fisherman, and then you level up with a common candy, and now you have a true specimen. The Unicorn. An ice tank. The height of Pokemon niches. Sure, Ancient Power is only 60 base power. It's a rock move. Mamoswine is a ground type, but that's close enough, and Mamoswine has a monstrous 130 attack, and rock is super effective against the ice gym. Those numbers are so big. So, a funny thing about Ancient Power. Because many Pokemon fans care more about numbers than aesthetics, the celebrated feature of Gen 4 is the Physical Special Split. But to the credit of Physical Special Split bros, the wonderful design of Mamoswine's evolution owes itself to the split. In the previous games, attacks dealt physical or special damage based on their type. All normal attacks dealt physical damage, all fire attacks dealt special damage. If Mamoswine existed in Gen 2, a time when both Piloswine and Ancient Power existed, this Ancient Power against Candace would have dealt significant damage, working off of Mamoswine's thick, juicy 130 base attack. But this is Gen 4, and Ancient Power is, as I called it as an 8-year-old, a swirly move. Swirly moves all deal mental damage, the damage type that scales off of special attack. Mamoswine has 70 special attack, which is a lot less than 130. Many moves on many Pokemon are suddenly using a much higher or much lower attacking stat, or are hitting a much higher or much lower defensive stat. Even if the difference in damage doesn't look like a lot on paper, even if it's as seemingly minuscule as 10 or 20%, such changes can transform a fight, turning a 2-turn KO into a 3-turn KO. In Pokemon, 1 turn is an eternity. And in Gen 4, a 2-turn KO turning into a 3-turn KO can actually become a 5-turn KO because trainers in Pokemon Platinum play dickhead Pokemon. In more specific language, they spam full restores. The Physical Special Split is considered by many fans to be a mandatory step of Pokemon's mechanical evolution. A tightening of the nuts on Pokemon's loose design, a mandatory step towards Pokemon's platonic ideal. The arguments in favor of the Physical Special Split are convincing, and I would never ask or expect or want Game Freak to go back to Physical Special being determined by type, because the Physical Special Split allows individual Pokemon to be more intricately and deliberately sculpted on the player end. In previous generations, the common complaint is that a Pokemon like Mischievous was unable to have a move that took advantage of Ghost Stab and its higher special attack. Ghost was a physical type back in the day. Why was Ghost physical? Because that's scarier. A real lick is much more paralyzing than an imaginary one, but now that physical and special are split, the 80 base power Shadow Ball is special and runs off of Mischievous's higher special attack stat. That's cool and all, it makes Pokemon that used to suck be less suck, but it's a less interesting part of the Physical Special Split. What it does that's more interesting is that it disrupts the hierarchy of moves within each type. In my Gen 3 video, I lamented the unconquerable dominance of Surf for water types. Not only is Surf an HM that needs to be on the team for story progression, it was the strongest water move in the game by almost every metric. This negated the interesting team building consideration around HM since Surf was just a good move, and it bypassed Pokemon's appeal as a game of novelty. Every water-type Pokemon became the same surf monster, with the only exceptions being Pokemon like Sharpedo that had an interesting secondary type to supplement their otherwise repetitive water offense. Suddenly, overnight in Sinnoh, Kingler's Crabhammer and Gyarados' new Aquatail challenge Surf's offensive superiority. They scale off of both Pokemon's much higher attack stat, while their sub-100 hit rate makes them have a drawback that doesn't instantly negate their use. Surf is on your Floatzel, but might not be your best water move. This is a powerful development, but when we move beyond Surf and water types, it isn't necessarily all good. In single player, it begins to flatten many Pokemon, smushing them all together into a homogeneous blob of find their best stat move. In generations 1 through 3, there were Pokemon like Parasect and Gengar who had to be built around considerations other than stab, and that's in much lower supply as the physical special split combined with expanded learn sets and a de-emphasis on TMs gives almost every Pokemon a similar path to battlefield viability. Find their best stab options, and grind them up in accordance to how many levels they need before their base stats become workable. As suddenly as some Pokemon like Kingler and Hitmonchan are freed to live their gimmicks and bless us with their signature moves, every Pokemon is built on the same assembly line. Yes, making every Pokemon a good contributor is easier now, and the moves become more varied, but the process is streamlined. The physical special split is good and bad. It's dialectical, complex, and to the credit of Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, there are under-the-hood changes that acknowledge how much better most Pokemon are after the split and how much easier it is to make every Pokemon good. Trainer Pokemon, especially bosses and especially Cynthia and Platinum, have much better, stronger Pokemon with higher IVs that boost their stats behind the scenes. Complementing the stronger enemies, badge boosting is now gone. In generations 1 through 3, badges would sometimes provide passive boosts to your stats. By the time you roll into the Elite Four and Emerald, all of your stats except for HP are passively boosted by 10%. With that mechanic gone, player Pokemon are now passively weaker. To avoid copious grinding, this places a greater mandate on building a stronger team with a better understanding of each Pokemon's strengths and weaknesses. The game won't let you just have it to the extent that previous generations allowed. Now, it's still Pokemon, it's still for children, it's still easy. A starter Pokemon will roll the entire game, and there's more than enough experience from the regular trainers to nourish everyone but the most avoidant players, but the extra pressure exerted on the player compared to the previous generations means that numbers are now more important. The physical special split gives most Pokemon greater access to their base stats. A special attacker like Mischievous can now actually take huge advantage of its special attack through the physical special split, a change that stacks with Stab, since Mischievous can now use its higher offensive stat at the same time it receives the passive 50% damage bonus from Stab. But it doesn't end there. Some viewers might be screaming at their screens as I keep referencing Mischievous because Diamond and Pearl introduced a new night terror to the roster, Mismagius. Or Mismagius. Leave 3,000 comments below about how I pronounce every Pokemon. I haven't watched the anime since I was like 7. I've basically never heard most of these Pokemon said out loud. Earlier, I mentioned all the new evolutions added to previous Pokemon, 28 new evolutions in total, with 18 of these being brand new final evolution tiers. Mismagius is the new final evolution for Mischievous. So, on top of Mischievous getting a huge buff from physical special split, it also gets a massive boost in power from a new evolution. With enemy trainers and bosses being stronger and the player being passively weaker, many older Pokemon existed in a weird limbo before they got buffed, but it didn't actually mean much because, you know who else got buffed? Gyarados. I mentioned his new physical Aquatail earlier, and little improvements exist like that for so much of the Pokedex. So even with the buffs to Mischievous, it isn't good enough. The numbers war is stronger than ever, so many legacy Pokemon needed more to keep up with the new changes. One of the best changes in Gen 4 is that Hypnosis was upgraded from 60% accuracy to 70% accuracy, and that's because Gen 4 understands the value of sleep. If you're like me, and struggle with balancing your sleep schedule around work, school, and all those video games that won't play themselves, that's where Manta Sleep, the sponsor of today's video, comes in. Manta Sleep produces a number of high-quality sleep masks and accessories to help give you a better sleep and nap time experience. Each mask, from the Pro Mask to the weighted mask and everything in between, is tailored to meet your specific needs. Each mask is easily adjustable, and the eye cups allow for a comfortable fit over your eyes. As someone who likes to listen to YouTube videos and music to sleep, I tried out the Sound Mask, whose adjustable built-in Bluetooth speakers let me get the sound I need to reach a deep sleep. Their masks are all 100% blackout, so all those annoying phone alerts and the cat opening the curtains will be a thing of the past. And it's not just for overnight sleeping. Manta Sleep promotes slowing down, relaxing, and taking naps to keep yourself energized in your day-to-day life. Go to mantasleep.com and enter the code BOPHEAD for 10% off your order. Follow the link in the pinned comment down below and enter the code BOPHEAD for 10% off your order. The 18 new final evolutions, excluding split evolutions like Glaceon and Gallade, are plotted here along the x-axis. On the y-axis is their base stat total, in the red is the old final evolution, and in blue is the new evolution. For example, Yanma is here at 390, while Yanmega is up here at 515. This blue line across the middle of the graph represents the average base stat total of all final evolutions and single-stage Pokemon in the Gen 4 regional decks, except new evolutions and legendaries. At 481, this line represents a roughly workable point to be at. Base stats are not everything. There's a lot more that goes into it. But because numbers dictate the machine, it's never a bad thing to have more numbers. 14 of the 18 evolution lines start below the blue line. All 18 finish above it, including Ambipom, who barely squeaks by after being dragged, kicking and screaming by 122 base stats to get up to par. For most of these Pokemon, the changes are straight power buffs to keep them competitive with the changing landscape, but some are more interesting. Looking at the 4 that already started above the blue line, some are like Rhydon, a strong Pokemon by base stats, but weak because of its terrible typing. The new evolution from Rhydon to Rhyperior adds extra bulk and the ability Solid Rock to reduce effective damage by 25%. Hey, 3 times effective Surf is better than 4 times effective Surf. Did you know that in German, Rhyperior is called Rhyhornier? I don't know if that's actually how it's pronounced. Maybe there's ways to learn. I don't know. Anyways, Porygon Z has almost the same base stat total as Porygon 2, with most of the changes happening to its distribution. Base stats have been shuffled around to give it more speed and more special attack, turning one of my favorite Pokemon into a fucking freak that's fast and violent and kills people with ascended use of the physical special split. Looking at this graph, what you see is an attempt to level the playing field, to make sure old favorites stay good with the changing times, or to make sure Pokemon that never got their day finally get some. It's a noble attempt. Pokemon is most fun when you can use a bunch of different Pokemon. Variety is the heart of Pokemon, and even if Gen 4 fails at variety in some ways, most famously with its original fire types only being Infernape and the post-game Heatran and the Ramgam evolution Magmortar, the game still succeeds at making any combination of critters fun. The question I have when thinking about the physical special split is that if Pokemon is making it easier to make all Pokemon good through expanded learn sets and new evolutions, does it still have the secret sauce? Does it still have the guts to go into the lab and create bizarre gremlins and suboptimal monsters for the sake of fun itself? So we return to our little outlier, Mr. Mamoswine. Here he is on the graph. A small jump in power over Piloswine, but one that brings him above water. The game demands us, implores us, begs us to go through a bunch of steps to make a bad Piloswine so that we can get a bad Mamoswine that we have to manually course correct after graduation. Well-adjusted, easy to use, and intuitive are great qualities for a pair of pliers. For video games, sometimes you gotta roll with it. See what comes your way. When I see a joke like Mamoswine that incorporates and teasingly plays around with a new mechanic like the physical special split, all I can say is, yes, Unk still got it. It isn't just Mamoswine. There are several bizarre evolutions in Gen 4. Lickilicky evolves from Lickitung if it levels up while knowing rollout, a strange combo that is only obvious in retrospect because Lickitung becomes rotund upon evolution. A common refrain about these types of evolutions is that there's no way to know what they are, How could anyone figure this out? This is so bad, to which I say that is too bad. There are voluminous volumes of text describing evolutions, encounters, and post-game content and secrets that could never be known to any individual observer of Gen 4 operating independently from the rest of creation. Some of Gen 4 is impossible to attain on your own. It's a game that denies all of its treats and treasures unless you truly desire to play Pokemon the way it's meant to be played, which is with your friends and by cheating. You learn about Mamoswine the same way you learn about everything else. A friend tells you, a Pokedex book tells you, the anime tells you, the internet tells you. Some may say it's bad because it's the productification of Pokemon, the transformation of the game into other forms you must consume and purchase, and I won't deny this. More than a game, Pokemon is a media empire of quick turnarounds, fast games, fast television shows, films, toys, cards, books, plushies, and trash. In our waning age of internet and socially funded school buses, the experiential texture of the game's wide capitalistic nets cannot be wholly discounted. Sure, to complete the Pokédex, one must have a Nintendo DS, and access to copies of at least 5 other Nintendo games, and an action replay, on top of needing a ton of supplemental knowledge, but a player must primarily be communally engaged. The notorious journey to catch a Spiritomb begins with playing in the underground with friends, with classmates, with passers-by. Other monstrosities like Feebas and Munchlax lay at the heart of why Pokemon fascinates children. They're annoying to catch as adults, but as children, they, along with the Mythicals, exist as legends and secrets, nooks and crannies in a world not unlike the forests and mountains that we see with our own eyes. Munchlax is a rare Pokemon that's teased to you by your rival, or maybe you heard how to catch one from your friends, maybe your friend even caught one, or maybe you circumvented the entire system and, like a skilled zoologist, you bred a Snorlax that drifted into Pal Park from Fire Red and Leaf Green. Or perhaps there's Darkrai, a sinister force beneath the universe that you must descend into the darkness of the code to find. You must venture beneath the Vermilion City truck, or perhaps climb the steps to heaven and find the unreleased Arceus. How is anyone supposed to figure this out is often asked in a YouTubian sense, a rhetorical criticism, but it should be often said with reverence, that artistic creativity could surprise your own imagination and intuition, that a game, a little, finite, tiny device produced by people could contain mystery, that they have worlds within them not explainable simply by what is convenient for the player. An example. At the northernmost point of the world in Snow Point City, at the base of an ancient temple, is Regigigas. Players have complained that such a rare, hard-to-acquire legendary Pokemon sucks. To reach Regigigas, the player must transfer Regice, Registeel, and Regirock from Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire to Diamond and Pearl, and bring them to the ancient Golem to awaken it. The problem is that Regigigas has the ability Slow Start, which temporarily halves its attack and speed stats. This is often pointed to as being poorly balanced, or designed, or that it ruined Regigigas. But as a kid, as an explorer, you are awakening the ancient, forgotten Golem of the frozen north that is arcing, aching, and breaking out of its eternal slumber, and you are bringing the beast to heal. That experience and that textual depth to the encounter is worth more than having one more good Pokemon for competition in a list of hundreds of good Pokemon. As a kid, the mystery and the spectacle and the curiosity of why Regigigas is level 1 overwhelmed the theoretical poor design, which means that the design itself is aesthetically correct. Now, is the game aesthetically correct or powerful in all instances? Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. Gen 4 has Snow Point City, and the glitch to darkness, and the flopping Magikarps, but sometimes the new evolutions make it feel like a ROM hack, rebalancing the older games instead of a whole new adventure. But then, sometimes the new evolutions are Mamoswine, and everything is okay, even if it's not perfect. When we take a step back and take it in from afar, it's notable that through all of Pokemon's minor changes over the years, the addition of new types, separating special attack and special defense, the physical special split, whether good or bad, these changes have not meaningfully transformed the games. They have evolved slowly, piece by piece, but the differences between Gen 1 and Gen 9 are more hardware than software. For better and for worse, the heart of the series remains steadfast. Whether that heart pumps blood or lead is up to you, but conclusions we come to or analysis we make of the minute details of Pokemon always seem to circle back to the same experiential core. Is the physical special split good? It doesn't matter. After all the years of listening and reading to Pokemon discourse, I found that none of the mechanical conversations around balancing and scaling and systems has appreciably altered my enjoyment of Pokemon. Despite Pokemon's status as a too-big-to-fail media empire, and every bad feature or lack of a feature that comes along with that, I continue to hold it in nostalgic esteem, and I continue to play each game, even if I think I shouldn't. Maybe what we need is the feeling of playing Pokemon for the first time, to tether us back to that core. And next time, when we look at Pokemon Black and White, we'll see if we can recreate the feeling of playing Pokemon for the first time. And that just about wraps everything up. If you enjoyed this video and are able to do so, consider supporting the channel on Patreon or on YouTube as a YouTube member. Viewer support is how we keep this channel going. And if you do support, not only will you get early access to video scripts, videos, and Patreon-exclusive essays, you will also get access to the Patreon-exclusive Game Club Discord server, where every month we play a game together and discuss it. We just wrapped up playing Donkey Kong 94 for the Game Boy, and in October we've got our first Halloween special, where we'll be playing Capcom's Sweet Home for the Famicom and watching the Kiyoshi Kurosawa film that it's based on. The names you see on screen are the channel's supporters on Patreon and here on YouTube. I hope to see you both in the Game Club and in the credits.